The red-hot debate over illegal immigration now spreading from Arizona to California. The Senate there passed a measure that could create a sanctuary state for illegal immigrants by protecting many of them from deportation. The exception, those who have serious felony convictions. If the bill passes the Assembly, it could prevent the police from enforcing immigration law. Time for fair and balanced debate. Francisco Hernandez is an immigration attorney, and also Dan Stein, an immigration attorney as well, and president of the Federation for American Immigration Reform. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Good to be here.
Hi, how are you?
All right, Dan, I want to start with you. I mean, this is basically mirroring the policy we're hearing from the DOJ, from DHS, from ICE. So why shouldn't California codify it?
Well, of course, look, if the national train is jumping the tracks, California is plunging down a ravine here. They're actually doing even worse than the Obama administration in terms of enforcing the law by running a program now contrary to what the secure communities would dictate under the Obama administration's scanty immigration enforcement policy. They're actually saying exactly what the Supreme Court last week said they couldn't do, which is to run a state program contrary to the national federal priority. The secure communities program run out of ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, says that police are supposed to be checking fingerprints with ICE, and then ICE can actually ask for the detainer. And instead, California is saying, oh, we're just going to let people go. Unless they commit a really serious felony, we're not going to verify checking prints. So basically, criminal offenders, people whose ID needs to be checked, they're not going to be identified. Criminals are going to walk free because California police aren't going to be checking people unless in that particular transaction that alien has committed a dangerous felony. And that's not the federal priority, and certainly not the national immigration law.
Francisco, let me ask you, there are a number of sheriffs there in California who say they're very concerned and they oppose this idea. How do you respond to them?
Well, listen, the problem here is that folks, and Mr. Stein is usually pretty reasonable in his arguments, but how can you say that Arizona has the right to pass the laws they want to pass and then say that California shouldn't pass the laws they want to pass? We all agree that these laws started popping up because the federal government refuses to act. So if it's wrong for Arizona to do it, then California should not do it either, but the federal government's going to eventually have to face it.
Well,
and both
Francisco,
Democrats and Republicans refuse to do it.
Arizona's argument all along has been that their law would either parallel or support federal law. It sounds like what California is proposing is something that would be in opposition to federal law. So is there a distinction between what the two states are trying to do?
Well, then if the Arizona law is collateral or parallel to federal law, then why do you need it? The only reason it was passed, it was for political patronage or political pandering. And the same thing with California. I just think it parallels the Obama administration that we're going to devote our priorities to serious felony and criminals, not to speeding tickets and dishwashers and folks who are just here to make a living. It's a matter of focusing your priorities. But I do agree that if Arizona should not do it, then California probably shouldn't be doing it either for different reasons. The fact of the matter is the federal government is going to have to act, and they refuse to act at the congressional level.
Dan,
well, sounds like Dan,
Francisco says that you are generally very reasonable. So starting from that premise, what's objectionable here? I mean, California says, as Arizona says, we want to pass our own state laws dealing with immigration because the feds aren't doing it. Two wrongs, if you want to argue it that way, make a right.
Well, what's objectionable here is that California is taking unto itself the right to ultimately decide which criminal aliens will fall within the net, the framework of ICE or federal government enforcement. And in fact, the Supreme Court said anything, if they said anything right last week, it was that the federal government and the executive branch have some say in enforcement priorities. No state should have the right to shield or obstruct or prevent effective federal immigration law enforcement and criminal alien removal. And frankly, people in California are at great risk and jeopardy of criminal aliens being let free by local and state police because of an unconstitutional state obstruction policy. Under the Obama administration, what we are seeing is the wholesale crumbling of U.S. immigration enforcement in the United States today. And this example by California is a further example of how, frankly, the Democratic Party is superintending the dismantling and the arrogation unto itself of federal law, and to the point where it has no legitimacy. We're either a nation of laws or we're not.
Francisco?
Man, the sky is not falling. The Republicans are just as much to blame as the Democrats. It doesn't matter. And quite frankly, the federal government doesn't need the state's cooperation or blocking of the federal immigration laws. Immigration could go into any jail, any prison, and take anybody that's here undocumented just because they want to, and the states can't say a word about it. It's called federal preemption in the federal power. So they could go into California to these jails, and they don't, whether California reports them or not, immigration can run their own check. They all go through the same FBI database when they're booked in. So this, this is all about the sky is falling, and Democrats are doing this. Guys, bottom line, the federal government has to act and pass immigration law that makes sense.
And we'll see.
The Senate is Democrat and the House is Republican, and neither one of them have offered anything.
Let me just very specific response.
We got to leave it there, but we'll certainly
very specific.
We'll certainly see, if Washington has the stomach under any president or leadership to get some immigration reform done. Francisco and Dan, thank you both very much.
Thank you.